Pats-related question real quick. One, from your perspective, because you study these teams, you understand them more than a lot of people, especially on the outside. How did they get here? And also, you mentioned Caleb Williams. After that, do you still think that Caleb Williams is the guy for them? Or could it be somebody like, I know a lot of people love Drake May. I have fallen in love with Jaden Daniels personally. Do you still think if they could have their pick, that Caleb is the guy for them?
So it kind of depends, because I also love Jaden too. Like, he's going to be a top 10 pick. I think it's
Thank you.
Hayes out the barn on that one, right? When I look at what's wrong with the Patriots overall, and I say this as somebody who saw this up close. I was in Dallas at the Dallas game. I was about 15 rows back from the Patriots sideline on that one. Okay, like, it was not safe for work viewing that game. And you know, the team just looks slow compared to top tier NFL teams. And when I was out on the field during warm-ups, like, even just looking at the Cowboys warming up next to the Patriots, I was like, there's just a difference in talent level here, like, all across the board. You know, the most explosive pass catching weapon for the Patriots, I think, is Pop Douglas for me, but he's one of the only pass catching weapons on this team that I think would make the Cowboys roster. Like, that's where we're at right now, right? And not to mention, they're especially early in the year, there was the offensive line struggles when they were shuffling guys in and out due to injury. I feel like now things are a little bit more settled, and you can kind of give me your opinion on what you think their ideal starting five is. For me, I think what they want their five to be is Brown, Strange, Andrews, So, and then Wenu, right? And Strange is the only one out of that starting five with a pressure allowed percentage over 5%. So it's like, now their offensive line is actually a lot better than it was early in the year, but like, it was bad early in the year. And so when you combine not really have any explosive weapons at all outside of Pop, with a banged up, constantly shuffled offensive line, with two quarterbacks who aren't explosive movers themselves, and who aren't especially great throwers on the run, you have a recipe for disaster. Compound that with the Judon injury, compound that with the Gonzo injury, and the defense in general just getting banged up. Like, I really do feel like, especially if you watch this team when they played against Philly early in the year, like, this could have been a top 5-6 defense in the NFL. Should have been, honestly, if they didn't get banged up. And so overall, yes, the problem is injuries. Yes, the problem is the quarterback. Yes, the problem is, you know, not hitting on a lot of receivers, and it all kind of compounded itself into one great, beautiful disaster this year. But I also think, even with this being one of the worst teams in the NFL, they're still not that far off, because the bones of the defense are there once they get all their guys healthy. The bones of the offensive line are there when everybody's healthy. You get a quarterback and you get 2 more pass catchers, and you're doing okay. So I guess if let's say they end up with 3 and they don't get Caleb and they don't get May, you could take Marvin, solve the pass catcher issue, and then try to get a quarterback on day 2, or you move back a little bit for somebody who's trying to come up to get Marvin or Fashanu or Alt or whatever. You get Jaden in the back half of the top 10, and then you pick up one of a billion great receivers that you're going to get in the second round. That might be where I would lean if they end up at 3. If they end up in the top 2, you take Caleb or May, and then you roll from there. But like, the team isn't unfixable. Like, they're not that far off. They're bad, but they're not like in an apocalyptic scenario like Carolina. Like, they're 2 very different situations to me.
FanDuel is the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
Dietrich Wise, he's, been one of the people on the defense who's had to answer for a lot of this stuff. And he keeps saying, like, this is not a bad team. He keeps pointing out we're holding offenses below a lot of their season averages. Like, obviously no one in that locker room is saying that, like, we're doing our job. I don't know what the F they're doing over there, but that's kind of the vibe. Like Adrian Phillips last week saying, I guess we got to pitch shutouts. For a veteran like AP is kind of like, oh, okay. Like, I'm sure
he's not wrong, though.
Literally, like they keep getting the ball, and that's why entering the season, I thought that this was going to be a defensive-led team where Mac, with Bill O'Brien, with enough weapons, but competent NFL receivers that he'd be able to, hit this guy in this situation. You got Devontae Deep, you got Henry and Bourne, Yak, all those different pieces would be better than the sum of their parts, and they'd be able to close games out. Mm-hmm. And almost every week, except for their 2 blowouts, they're in these games. Like the fourth quarter, you're thinking, all right, they're probably going to find a way to lose this game, but they're going to be in it until the end. And that's mostly been the case. So I agree. I think that there's so many things that have just compounded and just made everything else worse that at some point the camel's back broke. And everything, like the poor roster building, the spotty coaching in some spots, like just the history of how they developed Mac Jones and all these things, just all came together, and it's the result that we've seen where they're still the Patriots. They're still in there. They're competitive. You're not going into games saying they're going to get blown out because they're not for the most part, but it's just what they've done in the past few years coming back to haunt them. And when it comes to the draft, my ideal scenario is trading back, getting a Jaden Daniels, with a slightly lower pick. And then I'm actually thinking come up and get later in the first round a tackle. Because I think even if they re-sign Nwenu, even if by some miracle Trent Brown decides he wants to come back, I think that a great tackle is more rare than a great receiver. Like you could stumble into a really good receiver in the 3rd round, depending on what you're looking for. And they need to flesh out this offensive free agency anyway. And I don't think the tackle depth is necessarily there. So yeah, if we're talking draft, I would like to see them get Jaden and solidify that offensive line with hopefully already having a couple good veteran receivers, and then just add somebody with juice who then Jaden could grow with.
2 of the top 3 rookie receivers this year, Tank Dell in the 3rd round and Puka Nacua in the 5th, right?
There we go.
And then Zay Flowers, probably the other, the other.
We don't say
which, I mean, don't even get me started on Zay. Like you and I were,
yes. Yeah.
You and I were heavy on Zay. Even the Patriots were heavy on Zay, right? Like
but when Gonzo falls in your lap, like, what are you going to do?
That's the thing is like, I don't think they expected that to happen. Like I thought they were going to take Zay, and I think they thought they were going to take Zay. And then Gonzalez was just there at 17. They're like, okay, fine, right, sure, okay, but like I think the plan was Gonzo, like I really do, and then, or I think the plan was Zay, and then they just got lucky. It couldn't really go wrong. Like they hit on Gonzo anyway, so. But it is an interesting what if.